Welcome to this introduction to African approaches to reading the Bible. My name is Rachel Starr and I'm a member of staff at the Queen's Foundation in Birmingham. The chapter is part of a book called Reading the Bible Around the World, written by colleagues at Azusa Pacific University in California. This chapter is written by Alice Yafeh-Deigh. She teaches New Testament. She's originally from the Cameroon and now based in the USA, and she describes herself as a diasporic, African feminist and womanist scholar. Yafeh-Deigh talks about the diversity of Africa and therefore African readings of the Bible. She notes some commonalities, for example, many shared stories of colonization, and also differences, for example, the difference between North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa in terms of culture, religion and history. But despite this diversity, what Yafeh-Deigh wants to get across is the importance of beginning with Africa and African lives when Africans are reading the Bible. What are some of the African ways of reading the Bible that Yafeh-Deigh identifies? She notes the fact that the ways of reading the Bible shift and change in conversation with wider social movements. So, for example, the independence movements led to a desire to connect African contexts and cultures with the contexts and cultures within the Bible and more widely within the church. Liberation movements, particularly the anti-apartheid movement, focused on racial justice and looked to the Bible for resources to explore those questions of power and justice and community. She notes how African feminist movements have explored the Bible with attentiveness to gender, and within post-colonial interpretation, which is a more recent kind of focus for African studies, the focus has been alongside wider critiques of the legacy of colonialism. She looks at two particular texts to explore some of these themes and how they emerge within readings of specific texts. First, the parable of the loving neighbour in Luke 10, sometimes called the Good Samaritan. She reads this text from the context, her own context of northwest Cameroon, which she describes as an area of ethnic conflict and land disputes. And she suggests that the parable invites hearers to confront their own prejudices and to recognise the need for meeting people across the borders for transgression in the search for justice. Second, she looks at the stories of Vashti and Esther in the book of Esther. Again, reading from the same context, she explores how the legacies of colonialism and patriarchy have impacted on women's lives in northwest Cameroon. And she recognises how often women in those contexts are encouraged to judge against the rebellious Vashti and accept the obedient Esther as their role model. But for her, she notes that both women are models of survival and resistance, and both women have their own stories of transformation. So both can be role models for the women with whom she is reading the text in northwest Cameroon.